My daughter-in-law said I was poisoning her with my cooking, so I made her taste her own medicine. That's what she said. In front of my entire family, and not a single person, not even my own son, stood up for me. It was a Tuesday evening. I remember because I'd spent all afternoon slow cooking Jason's favorite beef stew, just like my mother used to make. I even baked fresh cornbread. The kitchen smelled like home, like care, like memories. We all sat down to eat, me, Jason, Amber, and Frank. I ladled the stew into bowls, placed the cornbread on the table, and sat down with a smile, already planning tomorrow's menu in my head. Amber took 2 bites. Then she shoved her chair back with a screech, clutching her belly. She rushed to the sink and vomited, loud, dramatic, like a scene out of a bad soap opera. And then she turned around. "Did you put something weird in my food?" She snapped, her face twisted in disgust. "Are you trying to hurt my baby?" The entire room went silent. Jason blinked. Frank put his spoon down. I stared at her, completely frozen. For a second, I thought I'd heard her wrong. Amber didn't stop. "This isn't the first time I've felt sick after your food. Maybe you should get tested or something. Maybe it's bacterial. Or worse." I looked at Jason, waiting, hoping. All I needed was one word. "Don't be ridiculous, maybe," or even just "Mom would never." But he said nothing. Frank cleared his throat and rubbed the back of his neck like he always does when he's uncomfortable. "Let's not overreact," he said gently. "Maybe just take a little break from cooking Helen. Just until Amber feels better. A break. A break from what? From being the only one who ever bothered to feed this damn house." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The words got stuck somewhere between rage and heartbreak. I felt like I was shrinking right there in my own kitchen, disappearing into the floor tiles I'd scrubbed 1,000 times. Jason still couldn't look me in the eye. I stood up slowly. My chair didn't even creak. That's how quiet the room was. I picked up the stew pot, still 3/4 full, and carried it to the sink. My hands didn't shake, not yet. I didn't say a word. I poured it all down the drain. The stew, the cornbread, everything. Then I started washing dishes. No one said anything. They just went back to eating takeout Amber had ordered just in case. I watched as Jason passed her a napkin and smiled at her like she was the one who'd been wronged. That night, after everyone went to bed, I stayed in the kitchen. I scrubbed every pot, every spoon, every bowl. I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, my hands raw and wet, staring at my reflection in the microwave door. This was my kitchen. I'd cooked here since the first day we bought this house. Every birthday cake, every holiday roast, every sick day soup, they'd all come from my hands. And now they said I was poison. I looked down at my palms, calloused, cracked, stained with turmeric and thyme. These hands had built a family. Now they were shaking. Not from weakness, but from something deeper. Something is beginning to wake up inside me. Something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. The next morning, there was a stranger in my kitchen. She was young, barely 22, wide-eyed, polite, and eager. Amber had hired her while I was asleep upstairs. She didn't even ask. "Oh, didn't Jason tell you?" Amber said with a smile too bright to be real. "With the baby coming, I need help. You've done so much already. It's time you rested. I had run this household for over 3 decades without asking anyone for a break. Through chickenpox and business failures, PTA bake sales, and late-night soup runs when Frank got food poisoning. I was the help. Now I was an inconvenience. At first, I tried to stay useful. I offered to help prep ingredients, plan meals. The housekeeper, her name was Lily, was kind, but always said, "It's okay, ma'am. Amber wants it this way." Amber didn't even look at me during meals anymore. She scrolled through her phone, laughing with Lily over TikTok videos, while my husband chewed silently beside her. One afternoon, I went into the kitchen to find Lily pouring a full pot of my chicken soup down the drain. She flinched when she saw me. I thought no one was going to eat it," she stammered. Behind her, Amber was on a video call, giggling to someone on the other end. "Yeah, no, it smelled like boiled mop water. Only dogs would eat that." I didn't say a word. I just turned around and walked out. Jason came home later that night. I asked him if we could talk. He sat at the edge of the couch, barely listening eyes on his phone. "Jason, do you really think I'd ever do anything to hurt Amber or your child?" He sighed. "Mom, don't take it so personally. You know how sensitive pregnant women are. Let's not make things worse, okay?" Make things worse. I was no longer allowed to enter the kitchen. Amber said the smells made her nauseous. Then one day, I walked past the nursery and found a handmade sign on the door. "Please knock. Mom and baby need quiet time." I knocked. Amber opened the door just enough to slip through and said, "Sorry, I'm trying to keep stress away from the baby. Maybe visit later." Later never came. I sat in my bedroom, staring at the wall, the silence louder than any insult. Downstairs, I could hear laughter. Laughter that didn't include me. The table I had set for 30 years now held conversations I wasn't part of. The floors I had polished felt foreign under my feet. Even Frank, when he kissed me goodnight, did so quickly, like a habit he no longer thought about. I was disappearing. Slowly, quietly, and worst of all, no one noticed. It started with a spoon. One evening, I went to the kitchen for some tea. I opened the silverware drawer and found a measuring spoon missing. It wasn't like me to misplace things. My kitchen was always in order, always. But that night, something small shifted inside me, a flicker of doubt, or maybe instinct. I waited until everyone had gone to sleep, Amber with her silk eye mask and body pillow, Jason glued to his phone, Frank already snoring beside me like nothing had ever changed. I slipped downstairs, barefoot, careful not to creak the steps. I hadn't touched the security system in years. Frank insisted we install it after the house got broken into on our street. I was the one who set up the cameras hidden discreet, covering the kitchen front door and hallway. No one remembered they were still recording. I sat down at the desktop, opened the archived footage, and went back 3 nights. And there she was. Amber. It was 5:17 a.m. She crept into the kitchen, hair tied in a messy bun, wearing Jason's old college sweatshirt. I watched as she moved straight to the pot I had prepped for lunch the next day, vegetable stew. She reached into her robe pocket and pulled out a tiny sachet. Carefully, she tore it open and poured the powder in, stirred once, then walked away. I paused the video. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I fast-forwarded to the next morning. Amber took 1 spoonful at lunch, made a dramatic gagging noise, then later that night claimed her stomach hurt and blamed it on me. Again. I searched the week before, found her again, same ritual, different day, different dish. Once with lentil soup, once with rice porridge. I watched in numb horror as she poisoned herself 3 times just to make me look like a threat, a monster. She had staged the entire thing. She wanted me out. She wanted me humiliated. She wanted to erase me. I leaned back in the chair, hands shaking, the air thick and cold. The walls of my kitchen felt smaller now, like they were closing in. I thought back to every dinner where she turned her nose up, every fake smile, every whispered insult, every look Jason gave me when he didn't believe me. I whispered aloud, more to the darkness than to myself. "You wanted me out so badly. You framed me like a criminal." I didn't cry. Not this time. I closed the laptop, stood up, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel powerless. I felt something new, cold, clear, quiet. A plan was forming, and this time, I wasn't going to ask permission to act on it. I left before sunrise. No suitcase, just a duffel bag, a folder of documents, and my mother's brooch pinned under my collar. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I didn't even look back at the house. On the kitchen counter, I left a single note written in the neat cursive Amber once mocked for being too old school. "Don't worry, I'll never cook anything for you again." That was it. No goodbye, no apology. By the time Jason woke up, I was already 3 hours away, sitting in a lawyer's office sipping bitter coffee out of a paper cup. The room smelled like dust and printer toner. I handed over everything, copies of the deeds, old account statements, a tattered folder marked joint assets that I'd hidden behind the bookshelf for 20 years. The lawyer blinked when he saw how much I had. "You've kept meticulous records," he said. "I'm a housewife," I replied. "That's my profession." We transferred ownership of the second property, the small rental house Jason thought was his, to my name exclusively. I froze the joint savings account that Frank had treated like his personal ATM for years. I had deposited more than half of it through my inheritance birthday money I never spent, and small investment returns from a modest portfolio I kept hidden. I pulled out the title deed to the main house, the one Jason and Amber now strutted around like they owned it, still under my name. Frank had never bothered to file the update paperwork. Too busy, too arrogant. I had spent decades being invisible. But invisibility has its benefits. By 3 p.m., Jason had sent me 17 texts. "Mom, where are you? Amber's worried sick. Why are you being so dramatic? Just come back and we'll talk. We're ordering takeout again tonight. You win. Just come back." By 4 p.m., Frank called. His voice was sharp cold. "Are you done with this little tantrum? You're embarrassing yourself." "You think the world revolves around your feelings?" I didn't answer. I let the silence say everything I didn't feel like repeating. By 6 p.m., I was checked into a quiet guest house in a town no one remembered I loved. The owners gave me the same room I used to stay in when Jason was a baby, when Frank was building the business, and I'd sneak away for a weekend with a book and a blanket. I sat by the window, watching the trees sway in the wind, phone turned off, dinner untouched. For the first time in decades, I was alone, and I was okay. They didn't know where I was, but I knew exactly where I was going. Amber was due any day, and suddenly, nothing in the world could satisfy her. She craved things she never liked before: chicken soup with lemongrass, fried shallots, steamed pumpkin. Everything I used to make. Jason tried ordering from restaurants. Frank hired a private chef for a week. Still, Amber spat every bite out like it was ash. "I just want Helen's soup," she sobbed one night in the hospital, curled on her side, IV dripping beside her. "I just want her soup." Jason froze. Nurses looked away, pretending not to hear. No one said it out loud, but everyone felt it. There was a Helen-shaped hole in the room, and no one knew how to fill it. He called me 6 times that night. Left voicemails he never thought he'd have to record. "Mom, please, she's not well. We're not well. Just come for a day. Just make the soup." I didn't answer. Frank tried next. His voice was low, tired. "Helen, I know things got out of hand. You made your point, but this is your grandchild. Just come home. Cook something for the baby's sake." I stared at my phone for a long moment, then put it face down on the nightstand. Let them stew. Let them taste the emptiness they'd served me. They didn't know that I'd already paid for Amber's entire hospital bill the moment I heard she was admitted. Quietly. Through trust. No name attached. Just a wire transfer and a note: full maternity coverage. Private room plus round-the-clock care. They didn't know I'd called the head nurse to make sure Amber had what she needed. That I'd cried silently alone in my room when I heard the baby's heartbeat was strong. They didn't know anything, and I preferred it that way. Let them think I was cruel. Let them believe I'd abandoned them. For once in my life, I wasn't rushing in to fix everything. I was watching, from a distance, and they were finally starting to feel the cold. I didn't send the footage in anger. I didn't send it for revenge. I sent it because the silence had gone on long enough, and the truth when served cold is far more devastating than any screaming match could ever be. I uploaded the clips to a private folder. No edits, no commentary. Just raw truth. Amber sneaking into my kitchen, pouring white powder into my soup, stirring like nothing was wrong. Her expression calm, focused, rehearsed. I sent the link to the extended family group chat with one sentence, in case anyone still thinks I was the problem. Then I turned off my phone and went for a walk. The air was crisp, the sky unusually clear. By the time I came back, I had 87 missed messages. Jason called me 8 times in a row. Then Frank, then Frank's sister, then Amber's mother. When I finally picked up, it was Tina, Jason's aunt, on the other end, breathless with rage. Helen, we saw it. We all saw it. What the hell is going on in that house? I didn't answer. Because I didn't need to. By evening, Amber's parents were at the hospital, demanding answers. Frank showed up 10 minutes later, face-pale, hands shaking. Jason sat slumped in a chair outside Amber's room, phone in his lap, unable to speak. Inside, Amber was crying, not sobbing, screaming, panicked, furious, denying everything. It was a prank, a joke. I didn't mean anything by it. I wasn't actually poisoning myself. God, people are so dramatic. Her mother slapped her, in public. Frank stood by the window, unmoving. Then slowly he turned to her and said, "You tried to destroy my wife, just to feel important." Amber flinched. "You turned my son against his mother. You humiliated her in the one place she gave her life to build. You poisoned yourself to push her out of her own home. You don't belong in this family." Jason tried to interrupt, but Frank cut him off. "And you let it happen." Jason's mouth opened, then closed again. "You stood there every single time she cried in that kitchen. You watched her fade out of this house, and you let it happen. You don't deserve her either." I watched all of it unfold through a nurse I knew, someone I'd helped get a scholarship years ago. She texted me every detail. I didn't even need to be there. My absence spoke louder than anything I could say. They didn't know I'd already met with a criminal attorney weeks earlier, just in case Amber or anyone else decided to twist the story. Just in case they tried to spin it into my fault. I had the footage, the timeline, the ingredients list, even Amber's pharmacy purchase history. I was ready, but I never had to use it, because the court of the family was already in session and the verdict had been delivered. Guilty. Frank called me that night. His voice sounded smaller, older. I didn't know he whispered. "You didn't want to know," I replied. He asked if I'd come home. I hung up, because that house, it stopped being my home the day they all watched me suffer and said nothing. 6 months later, my name was on the sign above the door. Helen's Table. Recipes for the Forgotten. It was a cozy little cooking studio tucked between a florist and a secondhand bookstore. Every week I taught classes to women who had spent most of their lives in someone else's shadow wives, mothers, caretakers, who'd forgotten what their own hands tasted like. We made broth from scratch, rolled dumplings by hand, laughed, cried, healed. One local reporter dropped by for a feel-good segment. A week later, I was invited on a daytime talk show. A woman who lost everything in her kitchen and rebuilt her life in one. They called me a local icon of quiet resilience. I called it finally breathing. Then one afternoon, the bell above the studio door chimed. I turned, and there he was. Jason, holding the baby. He looked thinner, tired, regret carved deep into his face. Mom, he whispered. We miss you. She misses you. Come home. I smiled politely and walked over to him. I gently touched the baby's hand, then looked Jason straight in the eye. I cooked for you for 30 years, Jason. Now I cook for myself. The next day, Frank called. He offered to sign the house over, the savings, everything. It's yours anyway, he said. You earned it. Just come home. I didn't even blink. I don't need your guilt. I've already earned my peace. That night, I closed the studio, locked the door, and walked the quiet path back to my little apartment, the one I furnished by hand, every corner mine. I set down a warm bowl of soup on the table. No one else to serve. No one else to feed. Just me. I took a breath, and I smiled. They thought I was poison, but I was the antidote, just not for them.